Alright, hello. Today we are going to be giving a tutorial on the gardening and Palia. What is gardening? Gardening includes farming, growing the crops, applying the fertilizer, pulling the weeds and watering, harvesting the crops, processing the crops, and selling them for profit. And I also have some sample layouts and some additional info. I actually think I had additional info before the samples. Alright, so how do you unlock farming in Palia? First, you gotta progress through the main quest line until you reach the Learning the Ropes quest. Once you get this, you'll be able to locate Bodru, who will then give you the Gardening 101 quest. You follow the quest objectives, which involve planting, watering, and harvesting crops. And in this case, he's going to tell you how to do it with carrots and tomatoes, according to Google. Once the Gardening 101 quest is complete, you will unlock access to Bodru's Gardening Guild store. This is where you buy things like blueberry seeds and apple seeds, and the seed collectors at certain levels, things like that. You'll also be able to visit the store and purchase additional soil plots here using gold. The first plot is 250 gold. There's a max of 9 plots total you get. You can have on your plot at one time. They grow exponentially. I think the last one's worth like 3,000 gold. It gets pretty expensive. So this 250 gold gets up pretty pricey. How do you actually grow the crops? After you get a soil plot, you can now till the land, plant the seeds, and water your crops. Using your gardening hoe, you can use your interact button 1 on the untilled land, and it will scrape away the dirt. You want to make sure you get all the dirt in each little square. If you don't get all the dirt, you will not be able to plant your seed, and it'll give you a notification saying you can't plant the seed. If you accidentally plant, that's in the next part here. But yeah, get all the dirt. Next, you want to take your desired seed bag. For the purpose of the quest, you're probably using the carrots and the tomatoes. So you're going to have your seed bag out, let's say carrots for example, and you're going to place the seed onto the tilled soil. And you're going to use your interact button 1. I call it interact button 1 because I don't know what console you're on, or PC, or if you're on PC, Switch, Xbox, PlayStation. For the PC, it's left mouse button. Or you can delete the seed that you already planted. And remember, this is going to delete the seed you plant. So do not do this if it's your first apple, your first pumpkin, your first bean or blueberry, or any of those crops. Do not delete the seed. Just deal with it till you get the apples or the blueberries or the pumpkins, and you're going to have to make seeds later. But if you plant something like a carrot, where you're supposed to plant a potato or a tomato, you can delete the seed in the soil using the gardening hoe interact button 2 with the hoe equipped. This means you're going to use on your PC, you're going to use the right mouse button, you're going to look at the square where the seed's at, and you hold that button until the little bar fills up. It gives you a little bit of time to make your decision. So if you decide you don't want to actually delete it halfway through, stop it before that bar fills up. If that bar fills up and you didn't actually want to delete it, that crop is gone. Alright, so be careful on that one, guys. It's a useful tool, but you gotta be careful. Once you have your layout and all your crops planted, then you're gonna go onto the watering can, and you gotta make sure there's water in it and the durability on your tools are good to go before you use these, because they can downgrade as well. So go fill up your watering can before you start watering. You can do that at the pond at your home, I believe, or I think there's a little plot of water at the starter house. But you want to go get that and fill it up with water. You can also get like a well and fill it up with water. Then you're going to go up to your crops and you're going to water each of the squares. Fill up that bar all the way to the top. So you're going to use the interact button 1 again. I'm on PC, so I'm using the left mouse button. If you're on console, it's going to be a different one. You're going to open up your control settings to figure out what button you actually have it set to. You can change it as well. But you're going to use interact button 1 and fill the bar all the way up. And then your seeds are going to be good for the first day cycle. Alright. Okay. So once you are done with that first initial planting, there's going to be 3 things you can do here. You can apply some fertilizer, you may have to pull weeds, and you're going to have to keep watering crops every day. We're going to explain how you can avoid some of these things later on. But for now, this is the maintenance of your crops. So as your crops grow, you may want to apply fertilizer for better yields. I recommend placing the quality up fertilizer until you hit level 25. You may be able to get away with doing it till level 10 if you're getting all star seeds and combining that with level 10. Level 10 gives you a 75% chance or 70% chance of getting a star crop when you harvest it. If you combine that with the chance of the star seeds, you're probably sitting pretty good. But if you aren't getting those quality seeds right away, I recommend you get that quality up fertilizer on your crops, especially in the beginning, because then you'll get quality crops, which will have a better chance of getting quality seeds. At level 25, you do not need quality fertilizer at all. You can just, if you get it from your glowworm factories, you can sell that. You do not need it, because at level 25, you have a 100% chance of getting a star quality crop, even if it's a basic seed. If you just go to Zeki's shop and have a basic seed, put it on your farm, it will give you a starred crop. If you have an unstarred crop that you got from a seed collector, at level 25, you're getting all stars. And once you're level 25, I recommend switching to Harvest Boost fertilizer. The reason I do this is because most of the crops you're going to have are going to be weed prevention and water retain, so you won't really have much harvest boosting crops. So that's the next way to make a lot of money, is adding that Harvest Boost fertilizer. Each morning at 6 a.m. the crops will hit what's called like a day cycle. That means some crops take 3-day cycles to complete. For example, like bok choy will take 3 days to complete. And at 6 a.m. every day, you will either have to water them. If you don't have water retain, you'll have to water them, and there may be weeds growing on your farm. This means weeds can grow and crops will need to be watered again. So this is that maintenance I'm talking about. So if you're doing something out in the wild, collecting mining ores, fishing, doing all this stuff, make sure you check on your crops every once in a while. Typically at like 6 a.m. Maybe if you're not sure if you checked them before, try to get to your plot at like maybe 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. just to make sure they're all watered before this next cycle hits. Otherwise, they won't grow. You need to pull the weeds and water the crops so they continue to grow. Like I was saying before, if they have weeds or they do not have water, the crops will not be able to go to the next cycle, day cycle. So for example, with bok choy, I use this one as an easy example. It takes 3 days to grow. If you forget to weed or water, it could take 4 days to grow until you weed and water. It could take 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, 10 days. You need to make sure those are weeded and watered. It's a very important step to make profits and get your crops. Harvesting your crops. After the crops have finished all their day cycles, for example, bok choy takes 3 days. I think tomatoes is like 30. Uh, they will be ready to harvest. You'll notice this, look fully grown. You walk over them, it'll have a harvest indicator. It's interact button 1. So you run around, use the interact button 1. Again, on PC, you're using the left mouse button, and you harvest all your crops. Note, remember where they're planted if you wish to plant them in the same spot again, or have some sort of diagram showing you where you want to plant your crops. You can delete them if you plant the wrong crop, but remember what I said previously, if you dig up the seeds, you delete the seeds. And then what you want to do after you replant them is you're going to repeat the growing process from slides 4 and 5. Those are the previous 2 slides where you're just planting the crops, you're watering them, you're applying fertilizer, you're weeding them, and you're watering them until they're fully grown again. The post-processing and selling for profit. This is where things get a little more tricky. There's guys on Wikipedia or the wiki. There's guys on YouTube about the best ways to make money off of each crop. So once you have harvested your crops, you will have several options what to do with them. You can eat them for focus. I don't recommend it unless you're absolutely desperate. I don't know. I don't even recommend it then. Do not eat them for focus. If if you think you might accidentally eat them for focus, store them in your crates, and keep them for when you have seed collectors or preserve bins. You can make them into seeds for growing again. Now, if you don't want to go buy seeds from Zeki's shop or Bodger's Guild store or the Elderwoods, you want to remake your seeds. And you can also sell the seeds for profit. Some seeds will take the base ingredient, the base crop, and make it into 4 seeds, 2 seeds, 1/10 of a seed. So for instance, you need 10 apples to make 1 apple seed. You need 3 tomatoes to make 4 tomato seeds. You need like 1 carrot to make 4 carrot seeds. So they vary on their prices when you sell them as seeds and the amount they give you when you process them into seeds. So I recommend selling them as seeds on some crops. The alternative is you can make them into preserves with the preserves jar, and this is also good on some seeds. Tomatoes, for example, are better as preserves now. They used to be extremely good as seeds, so you might see some old YouTube videos saying they're good as seeds because it used to be a 1-to-4 ratio. So you used to put 1 tomato in and get 4 seeds out of it. Now it's 3-to-4, so it's not nearly as good. So if you want to make money off tomatoes, you're probably making them into preserves jars. You can also make them into worms or glowworms using worm boxes. This is where you're going to need to incorporate your fishing level into some of these things. So if you're just focused on farming, you may not have worm boxes, but worm boxes will give you fertilizer. They will give you worms for fishing, and they will also increase some of your money from this. And lastly, you can cook them for focus food or money. This comes into play with cake parties. You can grow lots of apples and use them for making apple frosting, which is heavily in demand for cake parties. You can use them to make vegetable soup recipes. You can use them in all your other recipes. Things like steak dinners are really good to make for focus. Things like heart soup are decent for focus. You can make sashimi, and you can make you're using rice, you can make sashimi. That's really good for profits, depending on what fish you use. So there's a lot of options you got here, and I recommend checking the wiki, checking other guides. I may even have a guide further on this, but I recommend going out there, seeing what the best way to make money off of it is. But everybody out there I've seen will recommend you getting at least 30 seeds plus of each crop that you're planting on your farm, and even some of the other ones too, if you want to pivot and switch your gardens. Alright, some additional info. At level 10, I was talking about this before, level 10, crops have a 70% chance of being starred. At level 25, crops have a 100% chance of being starred. So at level 25, I recommend you stop using quality fertilizer altogether. At level 10, it's really up to you if you want to use quality fertilizer. 70% is a pretty big chance, and applying all that fertilizer can be kind of annoying. But at level 25, you want to use Harvest Boost. You could use Harvest Boost at level 10 as well if you decide to go that route instead of quality fertilizer. Different crops makes various amounts of money in various ways. For example, tomatoes are better at doing preserves right now. Potatoes are good at doing preserves. Apples are good in preserves. But other crops are better as seeds. Beans are better as seeds. Bok choy, I believe, is better as a seed. Um, You'll have to check the wiki for your specific crops. One thing to note about this is cotton is in a weird state because once you're hitting star cottons, you're using 2 starred cottons to make 1 fabric, and you're losing profit compared to if you just sell them. If you want to use that fabric in your furniture recipes, you can make an excuse for getting away with growing cotton. If you're really hurting for fabric though, I recommend using one of the money making methods I'm about to show you from crops and buying your fabric from Tish's shop. It may cost you a little more money, but processing it kind of loses you money. So it's a really tricky one. Cotton's really tricky. Another thing is pumpkins. When you turn those into seeds, I think you lose money as well. So that's kind of annoying. Then down here, some seeds you have to get from the guild store. Those are your apples and blueberries. You have to be a certain level, like 8 or 10, to get those. The elder woods, that's where you're gonna get your beans. You can actually harvest those from out in the wilderness. You can go find them. And then your pumpkins are gonna require essence. Pumpkins and beans, they're good. They're good and bad. They're not the most profitable crops, but post-processing them could be a lazy way to make money. And then Zeki's General Store will have most of your other crops, all your hot, spicy, your peppers, your bok choy, your carrots, your tomatoes, your onions, your potatoes, your rice, your wheat, um, your Napa cabbage. Pretty much everything else is going to be at Zeki's General Store. You can buy specific crops from Bodger's shop, but you buy the seeds from Zeki's General Store. You can also buy some fertilizer from Zeki's General Store, so I recommend looking into that if you don't have the worm makers and the worm boxes. Um, let's see. Different crops give bonuses to other crops, such as harvest boost, quality up, water retain, and weed prevention. Some crops also used to give speed grow, but I think that was so buggy that they removed it. So what you're looking at here is these traits um, will do something for the crops around it in a T-shaped pattern. I'm going to show you some layouts here shortly and kind of explain what's going on. But the ones you're looking for are water retain and weed prevention are the two like top top ones, because like I was saying, quality up is only good until you hit like 10 or 25, then you just ignore quality up crops altogether in quality up fertilizer. Harvest boost is good until you hit that level 25, then I recommend you kind of pivot off and just use harvest boost fertilizer. But if you're doing rice in your crops, it can be a good way to make some hidden money. But yeah, water retain and weed prevention are the two are number one and number two. I'd say water retain is the number one you want, and weed prevention is the number two. All right, some sample layouts. There's a few different things you want to look out when doing your layouts. Currently, as like a level 25 and up person, I tend to stick with layouts that have 100% water retain and 100% weed block. I make monies in other ways, so I'm not as worried about high profits. But there's layouts for high profits. There's also an achievement for getting the nap weeds on your farm and getting a certain amount. So that is a third layout you can do. Layouts for getting weeds. If you're big into cooking, there's a layout for cake parties. The only one I'm going to show right now is one for apples. That works really well, and it's the one I've been using for the longest time. But I more switched to like a 1 or a 2 on here, like a water retain or high profit type crop one right now, with a little bit of apples in it. Um, and then there's layouts for all crops in the game. I was recently running the layout for all crops in the game. It's great because you have every crop you could want, but they're in smaller quantities. You have to cycle through all your seeds, so you have to get like 16 seed bags, sets of seed bags out. You have to pick which ones they are. They all have different day cycles. It gets very cumbersome, but it's decent money. It's on par with the cake parties one. It's not as good as the high profit one I'm going to show you. But you get all the crops, and a lot of people like that feature because they do various cooking parties. This one kind of ties in the same thing as the cooking party ones, but not specifically cake parties. Alright, so the first plot I'm going to show you is for 100% water retain and weed block. This is using a level 25 with guaranteed harvest or guaranteed quality up, so everything's gonna be star. And I'm using 100% harvest boost fertilizer in every piece of every every piece of the tiles. It's okay if you miss a few. Your profits aren't gonna hurt too bad. And if even if you take away all the harvest boosts, it's still gonna be about the highest about the best layout you can do. Other people will have different layouts in this. Currently, I'm actually using this middle set of 3x3. I'm having an apple in there, and I have to put a potato next to this tomato and under this carrot right here to give my 3 water retain towards the apples. Because you can see here, I have a lot. These ones are weed block ones. The bok choys and the carrots are weed block plants. And for an apple tree, since it's a 3x3, it requires at least 3 weed blocks touching it to give it the weed block, and then it requires um, at least three water retained to keep it water retained. I could have probably just rotated this set of crops over, um, but for the purposes of this one, hitting 3,000 per growth tick is really good. The pros of this layout is you're gonna have water retain, you're gonna have weed prevention, so it's pretty low maintenance overall, um, and it's high money. Like I said, above 3,000 is really good money for a crop, guys. You'll see a little bit higher one in the next one, but I ignore this cons. Needs all seeds keep up. Look, ignore this. I didn't change my cons. There's pretty much no cons to this one except you don't have apples or certain crops that you might want. Ignore these cons, so guys. I have to change these. Um, the layout for high profit. This is just all bok choy with harvest boost fertilizer. Once again, we're level 25. Days of harvest 3. So every 3 days you're making 10,000 coins. High profits, easy to manage, harvest every 3 days. Cons, you're only getting one type of crop. You're gonna have to weed and you're gonna have to water it. So it's kind of high maintenance in the department of weeding and watering every single day. But when you go to replant, you just have to have one seed bag. You go through, plant all of them. Just take 81 bok choy seeds and you get 222 bok choys out of it. Uh, this one's kind of situational, like I said. It's probably one of the highest money ones in the game. There may be other alternatives. Layout for getting weeds. This one's at 3,200, and you'll have to deal with some weeds, but you're only gonna have to deal with weeds on the bok choys, and you'll have to deal with weeds on the potatoes and tomatoes. So it's pretty similar to the first one I was showing you, except I got rid of the carrots and just put bok choys for higher profits and increased amounts of weeds. I would recommend doing this one if you're going for the weed achievement. You're hitting like the second highest amount of money on my list here, and you are still collecting a lot of weeds. You have like a third, maybe not a third, yeah, a third, yeah, it is a third. A third of your crops don't actually need weeded, so only 2/3 can generate the weeds. Yeah, see a 33% weed prevention. So you have to weed, but that's kind of what you're looking for. The layout for cake parties. Now this is the one was running for the longest time. We got 5 apples, one top, middle, bottom. And as you can see, you had the water retain crops on this side, the weed prevention on this side, weed prevention on this side, water retain on this side. Water, weed to get to the middle one. Water retain, weed prevention on these apples, weed prevention, water retain on these apples. So we got 100% water retain, 100% weed prevention, lots of apples, and it gets decent money at 2.7k with level 25 and all harvest boost fertilizers. This is on average per day. Cons, limited crops. By that I mean limited types of crops. You're getting the tomatoes, the potatoes, the bok choy, and the onions. You can switch the onions out for carrots as well, or a variety of them to spice things up, and then you're getting lots of apples. Okay, guys. This one is the layout for all the crops in the game I use. We're sitting at 2.7K. Again, it's pretty much the same as the Apple ones. Pros, all the crops in the game. Water retain, weed prevention, and it's decent money. Cons, you need all the seeds. Keep up can be awkward, and you're getting limited amounts of each of the seeds. If you want to run a layout similar to this, guys, but you don't have the beans or the pumpkins, I recommend just using blueberries or peppers in those two slots. And you can switch onions and carrots out typically, because I use bok choy for the ones surrounding those. But you're getting every crop. You're getting carrots, bok choy, rice, tomatoes, wheat, onions, potatoes, cotton, corn, beans, peppers, Napa cabbages, blueberries, potatoes, and apples. Yeah, so this is the one I was learning before, guys. It was a fun one. It was, if you really love gardening and you don't like doing much else in the game, this one could be a pretty fun one. You pretty much have to run back to your plot every day at like 6 a.m. to harvest the stuff and replant certain things. So it can get kind of awkward, but it's good if you're kind of a jack of all trades type of person. Um, Strongly recommend this one. It gets you a barrier of entry into all the recipes that require vegetables because you're getting all the vegetables and crops. I think that's my last slide here, but I appreciate you guys watching. I'm going to see if I can upload like a link to a PDF of this. I saw a lot of these spelling errors in this video, guys, this PowerPoint, so bear with me. I threw this together in like 10-20 minutes. Thank you.